concluded that if such a man sought Bieza as his wife, at least the silly girl would be well cared for. And so Tia Astucia gave her grudging consent to the courtship, and chaperoned several visits between the two. Bieza was delighted with the attentions of her suitor, but the rest of the villagers reserved judgment about Don Demonio. It may have been his white hands, his prancing step, or the fact that he never removed his hat. Tia Astucia noted that his presence made the old ones in particular uneasy. On a day when the priest was away, Bieza accepted Don Demonio's proposal of marriage, and at his insistence, a wedding was hastily planned to take place in the churchyard. Tia Astucia observed all this, and began to make her own plans. She took Bieza aside and advised her thus: "When you enter your new home, close up every window and door. Then take this olive branch, which has been dipped in holy water, and gently strike your husband about the shoulders. In that way, you are staking every woman's claim as ruler of the household." After the ceremony, the wedding couple rode away in a fine carriage, and Tia Astucia rode on her old donkey to the manor house, carrying a small glass bottle and a stopper. She arrived just as her daughter followed the instructions the mother had given. Having closed up every door and window, Bieza playfully struck her husband about his shoulders with the olive branch dipped in holy water. Don Demonio fled her blows in horror. In his distress he threw off his handsome visage, displaying the horned head, hooved feet, and snaking tail of his devilish nature. When she saw him for what he was, Bieza took up her task in earnest. He begged for mercy as he grew smaller and smaller with each blow. At last he was small enough to look for escape through the keyhole in the front door. Tia Astucia was waiting for him, with the glass vial placed over the keyhole on the other side. Don Demonio flew into the bottle with such speed that he knocked himself out at the far end. Chuckling aloud, the old woman stoppered the bottle and climbed back astride the donkey. Her astonished daughter pulled open the door to the manor house and heard her mother call over her shoulder, "Poor girl! A widow on her wedding night! Go back to your window, Bieza, and see what kind of husband God sends you." Then the old woman rode her donkey into the mountains, where she deposited the stoppered bottle among the rocks at the summit of the highest one. With the devil imprisoned on a stony mountain top, peace reigned in the village, and perhaps the world. 10 years passed. Tia Astucia lived in comfort, provided by her grateful child who had married again and moved to the city. Still the old woman was as shrewd and industrious as ever. One day a young man, a soldier of fortune, passed through that town. We shall call him Listo, for he was cut from the same cloth as Tia Astucia. When he passed by her house, he found the old woman sweeping the dooryard. Sharp eyes and sharp wits recognize each other, and soon the two were teasing one another as though they had long been fast friends. Tia Astucia invited the young man in for a meal, and then sent him on his way with the blessings she might have reserved for a son. Listo's journeying took him up the mountain she had traveled 10 years before. As he walked, he saw the afternoon sun glint against something shiny in the rocks. Stooping to investigate, he picked up a small stoppered bottle and peered at the shrunken creature within. "You look like a clever boy," gasped the devil. "Let me out of this bottle, and I shall give you your fondest wish." "My fondest wish is to marry the king's daughter," said Listo, sighing at the very thought of her whom he had glimpsed only once. "As good as done," promised the devil. "Now let me out." "Let us spend some time together first," said Listo. "I am eager to hear how you came to be trapped in the bottle." And so Don Demonio was obliged to tell the story of his fate at the hands of his mother-in-law, Tia Astucia. Hearing it, the young man laughed loud and long. Then Listo asked the devil his plan for winning the princess's hand. Don Demonio said, "Once I am free, I shall make the princess ill by creeping under her pillow." He saw the alarmed look on Listo's face and added, "For only a short time, until you can come and claim to be a doctor and cure her. Surely the king will pledge his daughter in marriage to anyone who can cure her illness." At length, Listo agreed to this plan, but he did not free the devil till they'd reached the outskirts of the city, so that the princess need not suffer over long. Within the hour, a proclamation was made that the princess had fallen deathly ill, and would be promised to anyone who could cure her. Listo found himself in line behind a procession of others, healers, doctors, and hopefuls. By the time the young man's turn came, the king was nearly mad with grief over his daughter's condition. In his despair, the monarch announced that anyone who tried to cure the princess but failed would be hung for impertinence. Even as he spoke, a scaffold was being raised in the courtyard of the castle. Without a worry in the world, Listo strode to the princess's bedside. Her face was so pallid that his heart stood still. He bent forward and fiercely commanded the devil to be gone, and quickly, he whispered to Don Demonio, crouching beneath the pillow. "Let us spend some time together first," said the devil, chortling just loud enough for the young man to hear him. For Don Demonio knew that if he lingered under the pillow long enough, Listo would be hung for his failure to cure the princess. This idea amused the devil greatly, as he was overdue to cause as much mischief in the world as he could. As night began to fall, the king sent his guards to bring the so-called doctor down to his punishment. Thinking quickly, Listo put off the soldier, saying, "The princess spoke to me only moments ago. She asked that we ring the church bells throughout the kingdom. Without that happy sound, she may not grow strong enough to speak again." The guards took this message to the king, and he commanded that all the church bells be rung simultaneously. The sound of all the holy bells was so immense that even the priests clapped their hands over their ears. Don Demonio came flying out from underneath the princess's pillow, clearly in agony. "What is that dreadful noise?" he cried, writhing in pain. "Didn't you know?" asked Listo. "The bells are ringing to announce the arrival of your mother-in-law, Tia Astucia. When she heard that you were visiting the king's palace, she came straight away to see you here." "No, no, not that infernal woman! Let me out of here!" shrieked the devil, and he flew out the window and was seen no more. The princess opened her eyes and saw Listo standing by her bed, looking at her tenderly. She smiled at him, the first of many smiles. Their wedding was a gladsome one, and if Tia Astucia was not their guest of honor, well, surely she should have been. My Own Self. In a tiny house in the North Country, far away from any town or village, there lived not long ago a poor widow all alone with her little son, a 6-year-old boy.
The house door opened straight on to the hillside, and all round about were moorlands and huge stones and swampy hollows. Never a house, nor a sign of life wherever you might look. For their nearest neighbours were the furleys in the glen below, and the will-o'-the-wisps in the long grass along the path side. And many a tale the widow could tell of the good folk calling to each other in the oak trees, and the twinkling lights hopping on to the very window-sill on dark nights. But in spite of the loneliness, she lived on from year to year in the little house, perhaps because she was never asked to pay any rent for it.
But she did not care to sit up late when the fire burnt low and no one knew what might be about,